Welcome to this brand new series of the Birth and Baby Business Show called Lessons from a Birth or Baby Business Owner. And we're speaking to those who are in or who have been in the birth and baby world to ask them the questions that you would like to know the answer to on how they got to where they are in business today. My name's Anna Lagrange and I'm one half of Baba Business, which is the Birth and Baby Business Academy.
And my name is Liz Stamford and I'm the other half of Baba Business, the community membership for birth and baby business owners. And today we have the absolute pleasure of talking with Megan Rossiter. So Megan is founder of Birth Ed and multi-award winning antenatal course, the Birth Ed Method. Megan has supported tens of thousands of families across the globe to feel confident and empowered as they step into birth and postpartum. Megan's work is focused on bringing together the science and research with the heart and wisdom of birth. Megan is the host of the Birth Ed podcast and mum to 2 boys as well. So can't wait to dig into this conversation, Megan, and for you to share your business journey with everybody. So I guess a good place to start would be to ask you, why did you start your business? Was there a moment or a catalyst or something that led you to it? We'd love to know.
Yeah, absolutely. So first of all, thanks for having me on the podcast. I'm really
Pleasure.
excited to chat. I suppose I sort of fell into running my business kind of almost accidentally. So I was in my second year of midwifery training when I fell pregnant with my now eldest son, who is 7.5, so over 8 years ago. And I had planned to kind of go back and finish off my training when I went back kind of after maternity leave. I went back, and due to kind of a couple of very random changes in circumstances, we thought we were going to get childcare funding. Basically, we got married while I was on maternity leave. And then suddenly it meant that my bursary was like slashed. We didn't get any childcare funding. And I couldn't afford to stay on the course. So I was like, right, I will pause I had basically had the opportunity to pause for 1 more year. And I was like, then, we'll save up some money just so that I can finish off. And in the time that we paused, I had used hypnobirthing with his birth, and had found it really effective. And we'd sort of had a conversation that like, oh, actually kind of long term, I could train to teach that. And then I could kind of do 2 days a week midwifery and that on the side. And it would give me some kind of flexibility, but the kind of security. And that had kind of been the long-term plan whilst I was on maternity leave. When I then took this kind of unexpected year off, I sort of thought, well, I might as well just kind of train to do that now. And then that can at least be kind of making some of the income in the meantime, but still with the kind of intention of going back.
Yeah.
And then during that time, I first of all realised that still actually going back a year later didn't really make things any more affordable, because we still didn't get childcare funding, and childcare where I live is still something like £25,000 a year. So I don't really know how you're supposed to pay for it. But within that also came the kind of realisation that teaching and supporting families kind of directly gave me, from kind of personal perspective, the kind of flexibility in my work that working in the NHS just didn't. Like, I didn't have to work Christmas or nights. When I went back, they were giving me like 3 night shifts in a row or 3 long days in a row. And I had an 8-month-old baby, and you're like, hang on, I'm leaving for work at 6 a.m. and I'm getting back at 8. I'm not seeing him awake. I would go, I'd put him to bed on a Sunday and not see him awake again until Thursday morning. And you're like, that's insane from like a system that is supposed to be family centered. And I suppose that then was the kind of the other thing, was that I was like, oh, hang on, I'm also able to support people in a way that is going to impact their birth so much more than you ever could in a 15-minute antenatal appointment or meeting somebody for the very first time in labour. And I think it was kind of those two things together that then eventually led me to decide not to go back and to kind of pursue what is now Birth Ed kind of full time.
Amazing. Amazing. It's like the
So
universe
good.
sort of conspired, didn't it? To kind of, it was almost like it's going like, Megan, no, you need to be doing this. You need to be doing this. And has it
I'm
felt like
really
that?
grateful. Yeah, but I am really grateful that I did it, because I think it
Yeah.
did give me, like, it meant that I supported people within the system during pregnancy, that I supported people in labour, that I've been supporting people at a cesarean birth, like that I've kind of had that hands-on experience of being there, seeing it,
Definitely.
which I think has definitely given me kind of a unique insight into now being able to kind of support people outside of it. So I don't regret doing it, and I think it's really formed a big part of where I am now, but I definitely also don't regret sidestepping into something else.
Yeah, definitely. Because your life would have been very different now, wouldn't it, if you'd continued down the midwifery route? And, you know, I guess, like you said, there's not much flexibility and it's not very family friendly. Whereas I'm making assumptions here, but what you've created for yourself is that flexibility, and like you manage your own time and when you work, etc. And that is my favorite thing about running my own business. Do you sort of empathize or connect with that as well?
Yeah, I always say I'm virtually unemployable now. I've been
Me
self-employed
too.
my
Yeah.
entire life, other than this like 2 years where I did trading, which technically I wasn't even employed, unless we're talking like I worked in Baby Gap when I was like 16. But all of my working life I've been self-employed. So
Still
I feel like
babies.
the idea of having it's always been babies. The idea of having a boss, I mean, honestly, it makes you feel physically sick. My dad's also been self-employed for most of his working life, and anytime I say it to him, he's like, "Yeah, no, I'm like his daughter. We do not do well with instruction from other people." But yeah, it's that flexibility. It's between myself and my husband, we do every school run. We do pretty much all the school holiday care, bar a little bit of kind of babysitting and family stuff. So that was a really, really important factor in what led to this being a kind of, because running your own business isn't easy, but the payoff of having that flexibility and being the people that are looking after their kids, we could do breakfast clubs and after school clubs, and I could have a job security and kind of not have to be in charge of everything, but for us that was a really important factor in kind of what worked for our family and why we're both self-employed.
Definitely. So when did you make the transition, if you like, to being like an online business essentially? What sort of led to that?
So a version of the online course that I now run launched in 2019. The kind of first iteration of what is now the birth ed method kind of was launched, the kind of online version of the course, and I basically launched an online version of the course because I had spent a really long time building up kind of online community mainly through Instagram, also at that point in time through Facebook, just really connecting with lots of people who are interested in what I was saying and my kind of approach to things. But I was at that point in time only running kind of group classes locally and also kind of one-to-one classes locally. And I sort of had this realization that I am just missing out on ultimately money from people that would be willing to kind of sign up to a course that I was providing but couldn't because they lived far away from me. So basically made the decision to kind of set up an online version of the kind of version. At that point in time I was teaching hypnobirthing with my kind of own spin on it, and it was kind of creating that was what I then created, which launched online and went really well. And then not many good things came out of COVID, but one of the fortunate things for me is that I already had a kind of online course that had been established for over a year by the time we went into lockdown. And, if you can remember that point in time, everything stopped. Like all antenatal classes stopped, all support from the hospitals kind of disappeared, and people were like, I just need something. And we were all super panicked, and I was so grateful at that point in time to have something that already existed. And very, very random turn of events, I was pregnant during that year, and I had hyperemesis and was basically spent months and months and months in hospital and was definitely not at work. But because of the online course, like without it, I wouldn't have been able to have paid for anything during that year, because I wasn't at work at all, and I wouldn't have been able to kind of work face to face. So that was one of those, sorry, that's not a very helpful tip to anyone. That was just a very like fortunate situation where the kind of online course already existed. Then the kind of probably maybe 2 years ago, the way that I was teaching in person, I felt had started to kind of distance itself from what the online course was then saying, just through like my ongoing learning, becoming more trauma informed, becoming like just loads and loads of listening to the families that I was supporting. And in person, I was very much kind of offering like a postnatal preparation that wasn't included in the online version of the course. And so for a long time, I was like, I need to kind of update this online course. I need to make it more in line with the kind of messaging and things that I feel are important now. And so that was a kind of decision that I came to almost a year ago, was that actually what I was doing was now so unique to me. I basically decided to step away from the kind of term of calling it hypnobirthing, because it felt like such an umbrella term that was encompassing so many things, and the way that I was doing it was so unique to kind of me and my approach. And that felt really risky. Like I cannot tell you how many back and forth conversations I had. I was working with a business mentor at the time of like, can I ditch it? Am I going to really like insult and upset everybody if I say that that's not what I'm doing anymore? Are people still going to be able to find it? Are they still going to be able to sign up for it? Like there was an awful lot of kind of toing and froing with the decision of whether or not to do that, but ultimately decided that I would, because it did feel like it was so its own thing, and I wanted to kind of the ability for it to kind of stand on its own. So that's been the kind of past year, has been developing that, recording that, and it now includes all of the postnatal preparation, which has been a very, very expensive and a lot of work project. But now it exists, and now it's great, and it's all there. And so the decision to, I think your question was, when did I stop doing kind of in-person-y stuff? The decision to stop group courses, I actually only stopped doing that in December. So where are we now? June, so 6 months ago. And the reason that I decided to do that is because my husband works Saturdays and Sundays, and I didn't want to work Sundays anymore. And that's when I was teaching my group courses. I had done evening things, but my husband also works evenings. And so it just didn't work for our family, which was ultimately the main reason why it stopped. And, we've reached the kind of age with our kids where there's birthday parties and summer fairs and all of this stuff that I don't want to miss. And I think if my husband could do it, then I would work one day of the weekend. But also we have no childcare on the weekend. And so it was a sort of circumstantial decision. But I am still doing like one-to-one in-person stuff, either online or kind of face-to-face in like my local area, which I'm really enjoying, and I'm really glad that I've still got, because the kind of downside to running an online business or a pre-recorded business is you lose the kind of touch points with people, and you lose the like, actually, what is going on in the maternity system right now? What are you being told? What is the thing that everybody is kind of being told? And so still having that as part of my week is, I think, really important to me, and something that I want to kind of continue.
Yeah, definitely.
Ooh, so good. And the new course looks amazing, by the way. Like we were very excited when we say it came out. We can see the quality in how your years of learning have like gone into that, like not from just a information point of view, but obviously from a business point of view and a tech point of view as well. So that's been really amazing. I'd love to go right back, because when I first met you, I think it was 2018. So I don't think you'd made that decision about midwifery yet. But I remember when you came on my course, I knew who you were. And that's because even though you were only just perhaps in your head starting out, you had this online community already that you had been building up. So I'd love to know a little bit about that, like, because and I know the online space has changed, but we bang on all the time about building community, how it's so important to your business. And, you know, you obviously, that obviously came quite naturally to you, but what were your sort of decisions in creating that community? Like, what were you looking for? What were your outcomes? I'm assuming you didn't start it with a plan to, like, you know, have this online course years down the line. So yeah, just talk us through that a little bit.
It's a funny one, isn't it? Because I kind of want to tell you that I had this like excellent business plan and I knew what I was doing, but like I really don't. And still now people like, you know, I say I run a business and it's a successful business. I don't know anything about running a business. And I think this is the sort of like I think I'm really good at supporting people to have really empowered, good birth experiences. And I think the like bit that you don't realize at the beginning is that you're like, well, how good you are at that at the beginning is maybe like 20% of your success. I think as time goes on and you get like word of mouth and all of that kind of thing, obviously you do need to be good at the thing that your business is.
Yeah.
But at the beginning, it's like, no, you need a page that's ranking well on Google. You need like a reasonable social media following, or certainly that you're kind of there, like whatever it is, there's different ways of doing it, isn't there? But yeah, it wasn't, I didn't, you know, I don't think there was even like a right, I'm going to go and change the face of birth in the UK. I just really liked talking about it. I felt like I had insight and information to share. And I think that's what I kind of used it for. I think I did kind of dip my toe in lots of different kind of courses and information and stuff at the beginning, in terms of like how you should use it. Was primarily, I suppose, Instagram, and some of it I found really helpful. Some of it that just didn't sit comfortably with me at all. Like there was a lot of conversation about having to be like really vulnerable and like share your kind of like your vulnerability and stuff online, and I don't want to. And I have never wanted to, and I never have. And I think that is it. I very much was under the impression that like if you want to be successful, you have to like bare your soul to strangers on the internet. And I was like, yeah, I for me, like it's not worth it. Like I'm not going to sit there and cry on Instagram. Like I'm just not interested in doing that. I'm happy to be vulnerable in front of people that I know and love, but I'm not I'm not interested in doing it online. And I think it was like going, well, what can I do to connect with people? And I think for me, it was more about recognizing where they might be feeling vulnerable and kind of tapping into that and showing them what might help them or what information might surprise them. And so I think it's, for me, the kind of conversation about vulnerability and kind of is about going, well, what is, and I can do it in hindsight, like 5 years ago when I was pregnant, I felt like this, but I'm not interested in kind of sharing it in the moment. So yeah, I definitely think it's about kind of recognizing where people are at. And I'm very good at like reading people. So I think a lot of it was being able to kind of shine a light on, look, this is how you're feeling, isn't it? This is what's going to kind of potentially help you. And I definitely get like, I think I've shown like personality and aspects of my life online. I think people know who I am as a person. And I think that people connect with me from a kind of friendly space. You know, I've done some in-person retreats recently and people walk in and they're like, I feel like I know you already. And you're like, yeah, that I like. And I think that's important. And people have to realize who is behind. It's not just a kind of faceless page, like a bot. Of like babies being born. It's a person behind it.
I think, sorry Liz, go on.
I was just going to say, it's building the like, no trust factor, isn't it? So your audience like gets that connection with you, and it can be done in so many different ways. And I think that's a really good message to send to other birth and baby business owners, that there's very often there's not one way to do this. There's no like magical formula. A lot of us are kind of like trying things, testing it out, measuring it, and then going, oh, I don't know how that feels, and is it working? And then trying something else once we've given it some time to see how it goes. But definitely not doing things that you feel uncomfortable with is probably a surefire way to see you kind of give up on your business before it's really got started with. So yeah, definitely, you know, I like how you picked through the advice you were being given, you know, 6-7 years ago, and really kind of forged your own way, because that is really important, and it's obviously stood you in good stead to create a successful business too.
I think it's the same thing that I would say to anybody when they're getting kind of birth or parenting advice, right? It's like, listen to it all and then take what feels
Yeah.
helpful and throw the rest in the bin. Like,
Yeah,
it's no, but there is no magic formula. Like, you know, yes, some people share very vulnerable things online. The most engagement I've ever had on anything was when I was having a debate about whether or not people have biscuit tins anymore. And I thought everyone had a biscuit tin, and apparently they don't. And you're like, that's, you know, that gets as much connection with people as me being like, oh, my children don't sleep. Like, you know, it's a bit of both, right?
Yeah,
I think the thing as well that you've done, and this is just from someone who's followed you, I suppose, right from the beginning, is there's a real consistency to what you show up online. Although you've had lots of different bits and pieces, like new online courses and different, you know, strings to your bow, if you like. For me, Birth Ed, which I can't remember what it was called before that, but you know, it was big before that, and you know, it is amazing pictures showing amazing birthing experiences or perinatal experiences. They're quite, you know, raw and just and
real.
then your words of connection, the way that you connect with people, and I think it is really, I think it's still a really unique Instagram page. I still think it is, but it's such a good, I often use it as an example for people, because people often come and work with and say, oh, just what you were saying, I don't want to share everything about, I don't want to show my kids on my social media. I don't want to be, you know, talking about how bad my day is or anything like that. And so I think it is such a good example, what you've explained as well, to say you can make social media what you want it to be, but you do have to go on there. You do have to go on there pretty regularly. And you do have to be authentic to yourself. And then when you find the way that you can make social media work for you, then you know, it will just land, and then you'll be okay. So I really love that message, that it doesn't have to be, because that time there was this sort of like I don't know what the word of influence, but you know what I mean. There was like mummy influencers or people sort of in this world who connected to this world. We were all there at that time, so we know what I'm talking about. And they did have this very particular style of sharing absolutely everything online, and so we sort of have looked at that and think, oh gosh, you know, that's
what you
how
do.
they did it. Yeah. And I think it's really important to be able to show you don't have to do it like that. That isn't the only way. And actually, you know, I don't mean this in a mean way, but how well did that always work out for them? And often so, but not also as well. This isn't just about being on social media. It's also about, like you said, we've got to create sustainable incomes for ourselves. This is a job for us as well. And so how can we do that in a way that is authentic, that is you know, and it's not all about Instagram. Do you know what I mean? If you've got an online business, obviously it's an important aspect, but there's so many elements to it as well that isn't just about, you know, doing what we see, for what I want of a better word, influencers or people that we might follow. It's not about just doing it their way or believing that's the only way to do it.
I think the other thing that's like important to recognize about that is that just because somebody has like a big following online or an engaged audience online, it doesn't mean they're making money.
Yes.
And I think like there was definitely like a period where it was after COVID, so stuff was starting to pick up again. And I then reached a point that I was like, oh, people aren't buying an online course in the way that they were. Like, I actually have to sell it now. Like, during COVID, I'm not joking, I didn't have to do anything. It just needed to exist, and people bought it, because there was 3, and they just, that was it. They were your choices. And then obviously then loads of people created an online course during COVID, and then we started coming out of it, and then I sort of had this realization. I was like, oh, it doesn't just like sell it itself, you have to actually sell it. And I am not a comfortable salesperson. Like, it's not something that's ever kind of sit well with me, and I really like, you know, I mean, I still had a perfectly sustainable business, but I really struggled with like how do you sell to an audience? So that's like something that is something that I've done lots of work on with a kind of business coach that I've worked with, is like actually selling, and how do you get comfortable selling, and then how do you sell in a way that feels like, that doesn't feel disgusting to you. And actually I think when you work out the point, and you can kind of reframe things, and you're like, okay, you're selling it, but you're not being like, you're not a sleazy car salesman trying to sell somebody that's going to like crash at the end of the road. You're selling them something that they actually need, that's actually going to change their lives. And that was like a real pivot to me, that was like, oh, actually, yeah, social media and Instagram is helpful, and it's going to give them a small bit of information, but it's not going to change their birth, it's not going to change their life. If I actually want them to change their birth or change their life, then I need them to do the course. And in order for it to work, they need to have paid for the course, otherwise they're not going to do it. So it's not like I can just put it up for free. And also I need to eat food. So it was those kind of realizations, I think, that was like, okay, actually selling is a good idea, you should definitely do it.
Yeah, definitely. But again, it's so common, isn't it, in birth and baby world, for people to feel uncomfortable about selling, and about that kind of, they sort of see it as self-promotion, or it's icky. But I really think that, coming from exactly what you just said there, like really tuning into the transformation that these people who are going to buy your thing, in your case, it was your online course, that what they're going to experience, what they're going to benefit from it, and the value. So really tuning into that, that's what's always worked for me in terms of selling. I was focused on the outcome rather than, the actual process of selling. But I think I really want to ask you a question about, you touched on it, about how like over COVID, there wasn't that many online courses, and then all of a sudden there's loads. So I obviously a little bit about my backstory. So I own the Calm Birth School now, which was owned by Susie Ashworth, and Susie brought out into the world the very first online hypnobirthing course, which which was a major part of the Calm Birth School initially, and now it's really just focused on training under my leadership. So she really was in a market where there was nobody else. And how do you now differentiate yourself from all of the other programs that are out there? Like, how do you make sure that birth ed is like the most viable option for people, and how do you feel about that?
I think that was something that ended up being the kind of clincher for making it its own thing, and not a kind of, it's a hypnobirthing course. And there are still elements of some of the hypnobirthing techniques within the course, but there is so much more that has kind of come from my own experience and supporting families and kind of working within the system and stuff. And I think primarily it's because I genuinely believe it is the best thing that people can do. Like, I really feel like the information and the approach that is in there is helping people in a way that other stuff just isn't. And I have, supported people that have done other online courses, and I hate to say it, but in some instances it's contributed to their trauma, or it has not prepared them in the way that they had kind of expected it to. And all of the feedback that I get about the online course is that it is really inclusive, that it's really nuanced, that even in filming the new course, we had 3 mums come in to do kind of photo shoots and filming and stuff as part of it, that had used the course. One of them had a home birth, one of them had 2 planned cesareans, and was always going to have had 2 planned cesareans, and one of them had quite a complicated kind of transfer situation, and all of them felt like they were supported and like they had the information that they needed. And so, like, I feel like the ethos that I have created has been so thought through, and I feel so confident in it and so comfortable with it, that I feel really comfortable with what I'm putting out there. So that, I think, is the kind of first part, is that I'm just really confident in what it is, what actually exists, what we've created. The other part of it, and this, I don't, this is probably something that you tell lots of people that you're supporting. I do not follow anybody that does what I do. Like, at all. I
wow,
have no
very
interest. And
good.
you know, I can't tell you how many years it got me to get to this point, because you do, it's like your thumb goes there before it's believed your brain shouldn't do it.
You're like, no.
But it started as like a very, very like trying to be really disciplined of like, don't follow it, don't look at it, whoever it is. And now it's like, it doesn't even cross my mind. There is I would say like a network of people that I do follow who I just like because they're nice and we work in the same field and we chat and they share a lot of my stuff and I share theirs, and it's kind of feels more like a kind of friendship, even if we haven't met in real life. But in terms of people that I would kind of deem like competitors, I don't even look. So it doesn't even cross my mind. Like I don't even think about it. And I think that gives you the kind of stay in your own lane strength. And definitely at the beginning, like when you're teaching locally and you're like, somebody's posted on Facebook that they teach hypnobirthing. Oh my God, like that's it. I'm never going to get a job ever again. And like I've been there, and then it's even bigger when you're online because the world suddenly gets bigger. And I think there's a place for like lots of different types of courses for lots of different types of people. But I think the people that will benefit from my course are maybe different to the people that would benefit from others. And if I can reach them and find them, then that's all I've got to do.
Yeah, some really good tips there. And, you know, definitely that's something that I do and have done in the past, is not to focus on what other people who are offering, you know, something similar to me are doing, because you can end up tying yourself in knots about, oh, I should be doing that, or I should be doing that, or maybe I could do this, or I could do that. And you really have to be like you were saying, Megan, like really super clear on the value of what you're offering, and really, really believe in the fact that what you have to put out there is literally the best thing since, what's the word, sliced bread or something. Why do I always come up with phrases that I don't actually know? But anyway, I really think that is good advice. That there is some benefit in doing some competitor analysis, which maybe you did do before you relaunched, and so, you know, that can be beneficial.
I think it's I suppose the difference that I'm sure you communicate is that that's intentional. So if it's like intentional, what exists, how much does it cost, what platforms are they using, how are they promoting it, and you've sat down for half a day and you've done and you're like, this moment in time is competitor analysis and that's what I'm doing. It's because you're trying to seek out something specific.
Exactly.
It's how very different that is to every single time you open your phone, you're like, oh, I'll just click and see what I'll just click, see what they posted. Or I'll just see what they're doing. And it's like, also when you do that, you only see the final outcome of what somebody is doing. You don't see whether they've got a team of 5 people working on it, whether this has been the pipeline for a year. You're like, oh, I need to do that tomorrow. No, you can't, because people are in such different situations. I think it's about recognizing that as well, as like that different businesses have different scales, different amounts of money, different amounts of everything. Like recently, the past few months, I've just taken on somebody who edits and does all of my podcast. So now it's like I recorded them all in January, and then I haven't done anything with them ever since. And it's like, you can look at somebody like me and be like, but how are you doing all the school runs? How are you recording and editing this podcast every week? And it's like, well, I'm not. Like, I'm literally not doing it. And I have done it in the past. The first 3 seasons, I kind of recorded and edited and promoted and everything myself. And it's bloody hard. It's like, if you're doing that, then you're not doing something else. And so this time around, I was like, okay, I've reached a point where I can now pay I couldn't a year or so ago, but now I've reached a point where I can pay somebody else to do that job. It takes hours and hours, and it's like, actually my hours and hours would perhaps be better spent doing something else. And it's all of that behind the scenes stuff that I don't think you know when you're comparing yourself to somebody else.
There's so much.
No, comparison is the thief of joy. And I think I don't know why this keeps coming to mind, but I think it's about you talking about competitors and things. But I remember really well I think it was in maybe about 2018. And I don't even work in hypnobirthing, but I've got a lot of friends in hypnobirthing. And And I remember when the first really low cost hypnobirthing course came out. And I remember the ripples that sent, in the community, and everyone had something to say about it. And most people were like, oh, it's never going to work. But I think it just brought up a lot of fear in people. It brought out a lot of their own insecurities, their own fears. Perhaps it highlighted to them their own struggles. Perhaps they would have loved to have been able to offer their course for, like a lesser price, and they felt bad about this and about their pricing. Or, it just brings up so much stuff, doesn't it? And I just find that so interesting. But I think what you've done is you found a way that works for you. Like, that looking into your competitors, or looking into even having people in that, in the birth world, and apart from your close friends, is not good for you. It's not good for your business. It's not going to help you. It hinders you. And so you've put in some really strong boundaries around that. You're not getting into the FOMO or anything like that. You're just, and I think that just really shows that business maturity, and it's such a great lesson for people. And I think especially when, like you said, with the face-to-face stuff in your local area, not getting too caught up on new people coming in, or people offering something that, that is similar to you, or could be deemed even as a competitor, and just that, that putting that alongside this sort of knowing and really believing in what you're offering. The two things together is really what has, created the business and the brand that you've got. I think it's such good advice, because I know it is one of the biggest issues that, especially, in the early years, that birth and baby businesses struggle with, is that sort of comparison, because often they've been inspired to come into what they're doing by these people, so they would then want to kind of stop following them, or
I think it's about like looking at, so there are some like really big birth accounts that I still follow. I think it's about looking at how you feel when you're looking at them. Are you seeking it out because you want to feel shit, like because you want it like affirmed to yourself that you're not doing a good job? Is that what you're seeking out when you're going to, and are you actually going to find them? I think that's a bit of a red flag. Is it that they've popped up and you've consumed some of their content, or is it that every time you go on, when it shows you your like 5 most recent looked at things, like their name is always kind of there? If it's that, then I would be a bit like, is this like a healthy relationship with this account? But if it's like, actually you are learning from them and there's lots of helpful information that's coming from there, then I mean, there are certainly like other big accounts I do follow, and I do still kind of learn from or get inspiration from, or even kind of a lot of the like topical stuff. It's like, oh, actually this is what people are talking about at the moment, like news and stuff. And then kind of in person, and I don't know if this is unique to where I live, because I know this isn't the case everywhere, but I'm out in Surrey. We have got the most beautiful, incredible network of doulas locally, and I think 2 of them many years ago set up, like, basically it was set up as a Facebook group, but we meet up like regularly in person, and I've made some of my like very best friends from that group. And the doula that then I had at my postnatally for my second baby, I met through this group. And it's like, actually, if whilst we think of ourselves kind of as competition maybe with people that are doing a similar thing locally, you're like, actually they live near you and they're really interested in the same things that you are, so you're probably actually going to get on very very well. And it was that kind of realization that you're like, oh my god, actually they could be incredible friends. And now if I get inquiries that I can't do, I refer onto them, and you're like, hang on, if somebody hadn't gone, oh, let's maybe forge a friendship, then they wouldn't be getting those inquiries, and vice versa, and we kind of send things each other's way. And most of them are doulas, which is not what I do, but I feel I'm a bit like, I am like a doula agent. That's what I feel like locally, because I get so many people that are like, do you know any doulas that are free for this? And I'm like, I'll just pitch it to my group, and then but the people that I'm friends with in that group are the ones that I send back, and I'm like, you need this person, I like matchmake them. And so that power of network is really special, I think.
It is, definitely.
I think it is rare, but I know we have a similar thing in Kent with breastfeeding, because we had a CIC that basically brought us all in as peer supporters and then told us all to train as lactation consultants, and we did. And so we already were friends when we became IBCLCs. We probably got outside of London the most dense population of IBCLCs in Kent. But it's that connection, like you said. I don't think there's no like bad feeling or competitive feeling. It is collaboration. Like if I'm too busy when I am in Kent or when I'm supporting someone online, you know, I'm like, you know, I'll go to this person or they specialize in this, and it creates that community. And I think it's such a shame. And I'm also in Surrey doulas as a kind of honorary person. I don't know how I got in there, but I am in there. I love it. It's also
I mean, I don't know how I got in there because I'm not a doula either.
It's such it's a lovely place, and I think so. I would just love to see more of that, and I'd love actually to just for people to listen to this. Like, if you haven't got something like that in your area, like it's such a great way to collaborate is to create those communities. Like, create what it is you need, create a network. So start inviting people out for lunches, and you know, get people together as a big group, and it can grow into a really beautiful thing. And it's a really good personal thing, because it can be a very lonely business, running a business, but also it's good for business as well. It's a great networking is just, you know, that age old marketing tool, isn't it? That just means that you're going to be known for what you do, where you live, which is genius, really.
And I occasionally go to like other networking things, people that kind of run businesses. And I've never found those that help. They've been helpful for me. Like, I found my podcast manager through, there's a group called Doing It for the Kids, which is like a kind of online networking group, but they do in-person stuff as well. Which and so I met her through that. But that group in particular is quite a lot of creatives, so very helpful if you kind of need like tech help or creative help, but not really anybody else that kind of does what I do, or anybody that's going to kind of need me for anything. And again, locally I've kind of done a few networking things, and you're like, I mean, meeting somebody that like runs, I don't know, an accountancy firm or so like that, you're like, it's not actually helpful to me. So it is about kind of working out, and that's where that kind of doula network comes in really nicely. And then actually a venue that I used to hire, they often did like hirer networking. So it was like a yoga studio. So there would be yoga teachers, Pilates teachers, personal trainers. I would go. And so that was similarly like a reasonably helpful kind of way of networking and meeting people as well. But it's, you've got to kind of choose your networking wisely.
Yeah, you do.
100%.
Definitely. And I mean, that's one of we're always suggesting that people network in their local community, especially if they're doing, you know, teaching in-person classes. Like, it's fundamental to creating that sort of foundation for your business in your local area. But it's also one of the reasons why we set up BABA, because we wanted to create a community of people who had similar audiences where everyone could support each other and learn from each other. Because something that you might do as a baby massage instructor in your business, in your marketing, you know, in your promotion might not be something that you would think to do as a hypnobirthing instructor or IBCLC. So it's like having that kind of benchmarking and looking at other businesses and seeing like how can we learn from each other. It's just really, really, really powerful. So always collaboration over competition. But if you're getting, like you were saying, if you're developing unhealthy habits on Instagram, for instance, then definitely best to like unfollow and move away from that. So do you, Megan, getting more into thinking about like you personally, so do you have any regular habits or rituals that you feel that really help you to be the successful business owner that you are?
You've definitely caught me at like the final half term of the year, which is when all of like any of that goes totally out the window, because there's sports days and there's this and there's that. And I was telling you guys before, we're trying to move house, so there's constant like house viewings and everything going on. So at the moment, I would like to pretend that I did, but I would be lying. And I have absolutely nothing other than like try to sit at the desk rather than lay on the bed, which happens about 30% of the time, and drink lots of tea. But I definitely think like when I'm in the slightly more thriving time of work, and I think it definitely goes in ebbs and flows, and between now and September is ebb the down, because I think I'm in the ebb at the moment. But yeah, when things are kind of running smoothly, do I have any kind of rituals and things that I do? I'm trying to pretend that I do. I really don't, do I? No, I don't. That's the answer to my question. I have nothing to offer you. When I told you I don't know how to run a business, honestly, I'm making this up. And I have no, but I would quite like to. So if either of you do, and you would like to tell me what to do,
well, Megan,
then I'm very keen.
I'm really interested in, because you've got such a strong mindset, you know, and you obviously have support in your business, which is great, you know, like for yourself and your business, having a coach and having a, you know, mentor and things like that is really helpful. But there must be, you know, I know you've talked about staying in your own lane, but there must be like stuff, you must get those moments where your mindset's off, or you know, you can see that you're, you know, that your thought patterns aren't helpful, because we all have those moments, don't we? Like, how do you deal with that?
So I have been doing, so the mentor that I've been working with has been a lot on kind of like mindset. And so I've been learning a lot about NLP, and even kind of deeper into kind of hypnosis and stuff. And a big part, now I'm not trained to teach NLP, I've just been having it used upon me. I think this might be part of that, it might be part of something else, but it's something called parts work. Have you heard of this?
Yeah.
So it's about like recognizing within your own mind, I suppose, whether your thoughts and feelings are being controlled by what you would call yourself, which is like you when you're in your kind of best self, or if it is being controlled by like a part. And the best sort of comparison is, you know, the film Inside Out, when it's like all those little people controlling the kind of brain. It's basically that. And it's like, actually, what part of you is making you feel like that or making you think like that, and what are they trying to do? And often it's that they're trying to protect you from something. And so just kind of starting to understand all of that stuff has really changed the way that I have started to kind of be able to, I suppose, move out of wobbles more quickly. Whereas like something might have knocked me for like a day or two or three, it's like actually just really recognizing and pausing and being like, okay, I'm having this thought, and speaking to it and being like, what are you trying to do? Like, why are you trying to sabotage me? What are you trying to protect me from? And often it just then kind of separates you from the thought a little bit more. You know, I'm not explaining it probably quite as well as it was explained to me, but in terms of like how I'm using it practically, that is definitely, I think, helpful. And I think is, for me, kind of mindset work is almost more that than like, oh, I journal every morning and I you know, do breath work every night, because I wish I could, but I don't, because I have a 7-year-old and a 3-year-old and life, and so I don't do those things. But I think I do try to speak kindly to myself and start to kind of recognize, is this thought helpful, or is this just something that's coming in to kind of protect me, or because of something that's happened before, and is it going to help me, or do I need to sort of thank my brain for the thought and then carry on with what I was doing?
Well, I think that's a great habit to have and to share. And it's all about becoming self-aware, really, isn't it? And sort of tuning into yourself, becoming familiar with yourself. And we can definitely all benefit from that. And it is those things, those parts of us are the things, you know, the saboteur, the bits that are going to limit us and stop us from thinking that we can really do it. They are the things that are going to bring down our business if we're not careful. So I think that's a really important thing to share. But if you did want some rituals, we do actually have a freebie, Megan, which you're welcome to download.
Great. I definitely need it. I actually think I will.
Yeah, go and take a look. And I think I just want to mention the self-compassion there as well, because self-compassion is so important. And you know, there's going to be ups and downs. Like running a business is a roller coaster. It just is, you know. And so it's so important that we're kind to ourselves when challenges occur, or when we've done something that we think we should have done differently or whatever. I think that's a really key message there, is that, you know, being kind to yourself and being like, having that growth mindset, almost that, you know, we're not going to get everything right all the time, really helps, doesn't it, with bringing our business on. Yeah. I'd love to ask this question, which is, what piece of advice would you have for somebody who was starting a birth or baby business that they want, you know, that they want to be really impactful and sustainable? What one piece of advice would you give to them?
So somebody actually asked me this recently on a very, very different podcast, but I think it was hopefully a helpful bit of advice. And I think one of the most useful really hopefully practical, tangible things that I have done along the way, is making like affordable but potentially punchy investments in growing the business. If you want to make it grow, you do have to put something into it, and that could be anything. So at the very, very beginning, like very first few months of the business, that was paying for 2 mornings a week of nursery. And it was like, I cannot do this with a 2-year-old running around my feet. I just need like some headspace and quiet time. So my husband did 2 afternoons and he did 2 mornings in nursery, and it meant that I got 2 full days a week to kind of build the business, which was kind of transformative at that point in time.
Amazing,
and probably cost something like £50 a week or something. I don't know. It wasn't like tons of money, but also I wasn't earning any money, so we didn't like have £50. That it wasn't going to bankrupt us. And then kind of right through to the kind of latter half of last year, where I spent a lot of money on working with a kind of business mentor in a way that I had never done before, because I very much felt like a lot of business mentors were running cults and I wasn't interested in joining a cult. But so yeah, taking a while to kind of choose somebody, and it did feel like this is more money than I've spent on a lot of things in my life. But I would never have relaunched the online, never in a million years have done it without her making me do it, without her advice, without that kind of sounding board person, that kind of support. And yeah, that and launching the online course was a very, very hefty outgoing, and it felt quite risky, but it's already been worth it. So it's that. So yeah, slowly, but bit by bit. Don't go pay £6,000 for a business coach if you at the very, very beginning of your business. You know, unless you've got £6,000 sitting around,
well, of
in which
course.
case, go for it.
Definitely. No, I think that's really good advice. And it's important for people to understand as well that to have a product that looks like yours, that, you know, feels like yours, and is as well, it's aesthetically pleasing, but also, you know, and I've never bought it, so I wouldn't know, but I imagine it's a very good user experience. So in order to have something like that there is a monetary cost to it. Like, you do have to be able to say, I am going to invest in myself and my business and do this, if you really mean it. And there are so many people in the birth world who've got amazing, innovative, bright ideas that they want to bring to the world, and we need those people. But it has to be the right time for them, and when they can, you know, obviously invest in themselves and in their businesses as well. So that's good to know.
You do need that up. So when I created the first online course, I borrowed £2,000 from my mum, and I paid her back every single penny. Amazing. Just so that I could kind of get it off the ground. Yeah. The second online course, things went up a lot in the 5 years between recording them both, and I did all the branding, we did photo shoot, we did it significantly longer. It was 7 times the price, if you want to do the maths. Like, that's how much, if we're talking like how much, like, because people want to know, right, how much does it cost to do that? That's how much it costs. So if that's, you know, I think sometimes we never talk about figures and money. Like, it's important. That's how much it cost.
Yeah, exactly. If someone's got aspirations to do something like that, it's important for them to know. If you're going to create a quality product, you know, you do often have to put money behind it, or you do have to put money behind it. So thank you for sharing. Thank you for being vulnerable and sharing that.
There you go. There's my vulnerability.
No, that's brilliant. So Megan, will you tell everyone where they can find you, how they can follow you, where they can just get more Megan in their lives?
Yeah. So as long as it's not making you feel shit, in which case don't follow. But if it makes you feel good, then come and find me on Instagram at birth_ed. I think that's probably the best place to find me. But if you again, if you just want it for like the information sake, then the podcast is a really useful place, because it's not just me wittering on. There's lots of really brilliant guests, and that is the Birth Ed podcast. So wherever you're listening to this, you will also find that.
Fantastic. Brilliant. We'll put all that in the show notes. Thank you for sharing. And that's
Megan.
That's the end of our...
Thanks for having me.
Yeah. So
I'm sorry, Liz. So yeah, if you have listened and you like this episode or any of our episodes, then do leave us a subscribe. If you're on YouTube, leave us a comment and review us, and do come and let us know on Instagram as well. So particularly about this episode, we would love to know how you found it and what you've got from it. And we will see you next week. Thank you. Bye.
Bye.